Yo, what's going on, though? This is your boy Crispy Daniels, back at it again on another episode of Show and Talk. So, by the show of hands, how many of y'all seen the movie Bad Boys? Now, I know this is going to come off as, a stupid question because millions of people have seen the movie by now. But what if I said I'm not talking about that movie? There's another movie called Bad Boys that came out in 1983, and it stars Sean Penn. And I'm pretty sure, some of my audience has seen this movie, some of you may not. But we're going to get into it because there's a lot of scenes in this movie that stuck out to me. I had just watched it recently, and I ain't seen this movie in years. I think the last time I seen it before now was back in 2003. So when I sat down and watched this movie, a lot of stuff that I forgot about came back to me. So, if you ever been to juvie, right? Because this movie is basically taking place in a juvenile detention center. Yo, if you ever been to juvie, let me know if it's something like what goes down in this movie. Cause I've never been, so you know. Anyway, so the movie is about this guy named Mick O Brien. Like I said, once again, played by Sean Penn. And he's pretty much, delinquent. So basically, what he does on the daily, he just goes around, robbing people, just doing all kinds of shit. You know what I'm saying? And then you got his adversary, nemesis, enemy, Paco, played by S.I. Morales. Now, this dude, he's kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Agitator when it comes to Mick. But at the same time, he stays to himself with his crew, but they're drug dealers. You know what I'm saying? So while they're at school, him and Mick are bumping heads over Mick's girlfriend, played by Ali Sheedy. But what really causes tensions between these two is one night Mick tries to rob Paco when he's walking down the street with this suitcase, you know what I'm saying, full of merchandise or whatever, right? And there's this other group of dudes that also had beef with Paco. So they tried to, get the Paco as well. But when they saw what Mick and his homeboy did, they started shooting. And so before Mick was able to do what he was going to do, he drove off. Well, his homeboy got shot because he was, it was like a shootout and he got hit. You know what I'm saying? But Mick took over, you know what I'm saying, got in the driver's side and he, you know what I'm saying, just sped off. And so what happened was he lost control of the car. And Paco's little brother standing outside on the sidewalk. Why he was there, I don't know. You know what I'm saying? But he got hit by the car and Mick accidentally killed him. So this is what landed Mick in the juvenile detention center, right? And when he first got there, him and this other little dude, this little black dude, um, when they first got there, it's kind of like a tradition they do. Every time somebody comes in, you have two rows, one on each side of kids. You know what I'm saying? Taunting them, throwing stuff at them, and then spitting on them. Now, when they was filming this scene, I know it was pretty hard for anybody to go through this. Even, what I'm saying, even though they were just acting, but being spat on, man, that's like the worst thing you could do to somebody. But there was nothing they could do pretty much. Excuse me. Because it was just, what I'm saying, everybody was doing it. So they just had to take it. So Mick was on, what I'm saying, the bottom level, the lower level. And then the kid, he was on the upper level. So from the time Mick got there, right, these two guys started messing with him, named Viking, played by Clancy Brown, and this dude named Tweety, played by Robert Lee Rush. So those two were pretty much running the detention center. You know what I'm saying? Like they were like the top dogs in there. And the dude Tweety, right? He did. Now, this is one of the controversial scenes in the movie that I'm talking about. So when he spots the little kid that came there with Mick, he started messing with him. You know what I'm saying? Started taunting him and all that. But one thing I did not expect the first time I seen this movie, the one thing I did not expect he was going to do was go in that kid's cell and violate him for no reason. You know what I'm saying? And y'all know what I'm talking about. So after he comes out, the kid comes out of nowhere with the ice pick or a knife or whatever. How he got it in there, don't know. But he started swinging it at Tweety, and then Tweety just picks him up out of nowhere and tosses him off the upper level. The kid hits the bottom and dies instantly. You know what I'm saying? But he didn't get hit for this. Like Tweety did not get in trouble for this because nobody snitched on him. You know what I'm saying? But the thing that got me is the fact that they still show respect to this dude even after he did what he did. You know what I'm saying? I know it's a detention center, but it's still juvie. You know what I mean? But anyway, so we're gonna move on to Clancy Brown's character, Viking. So he was really fucking with Mick more than Tweety was. So it was like another scene where Mick and his cellmate, this dude named Barry Horowitz, little young dude, you know what I mean? Um, they was sitting down to eat their food, and Viking nasty ass dug up his nose, and then just dug his finger all in the Mick's food, right? And Mick, at the time he couldn't do nothing about it because everybody was still, you know what I'm saying? Everybody was still like, on the side of Viking and Tweety. And so, they was messing with him so much. Even little dude Barry Horowitz, you know what I'm saying? They was messing with him too, but not as much as Mick. So what happened was Mick, you know what I'm saying, he went to the soda machine and he bought a bunch of sodas and he had put them in his pockets and all of that. So when he got back to his cell, he took the sodas and stuck them in his pillowcase because Tweety and Viking, you know what I'm saying, they thought that, Mick snitched on him or whatever for what he did to the kid. And so they came into, Mick and Barry's cell. Now, this is the number one scene that stood out to me, right? I mean, there's a lot of crazy scenes in this movie, but this was the absolute number one scene that stood out for me. So when he was putting the sodas in the pillowcase, right? Viking was about to do something to him, and Mick just turned around and slapped the shit out of him with the pillowcase full of cans. And then you could just see like his face explode. You know what I mean? Like it was just bloody everywhere. So he did the same thing to Tweety. He just beat the ever loving shit out of those two with the pillowcase. Like, yo, he did these boys dirty. You know what I'm saying? I was surprised like Tweety's legs weren't broken in nut because he was beating the ever loving fuck out of him. You know what I mean? Excuse my language for some of y'all who don't like cursing. You know what I mean? But it's just what I do sometimes. But anyway, Mick, he got put into solitary confinement. But after that incident, he became the top dog in the detention center. And so, not long after that, Tweety had, I think it was like a week or two, I don't remember, before he was getting out. And he threatened Mick and told him he better not see him on the outside. So Mick got in his face, got right back in his face and said, basically, what you gonna do? So they was about to throw down, but it got broken up. And then, not long after that, Tweety left. So now it was just down to Viking, right? But this is what happened. So we move on to Paco. And Paco, is pissed off that his brother was killed by Mick, but it was an accident, like I said before. He didn't know that though. You know what I'm saying? But what happened was Paco was talking to his mom, and he kept telling his moms that he was going to get old boy for what he did. But his mom's, she was more the like, religious, forgiving type. And she didn't want to see her son get in trouble because she already lost one son. She don't want to see this one go down. So, hard-headed ass Paco was going to do what he was going to do anyway. So Mick's girlfriend, we switched to a scene where she's getting off a train and she's walking out of the subway station or whatever. And as she was walking down the street, this car starts to creep up on her. And at first, she doesn't notice it. But, when it got close enough, she started walking a little fast and all of that. And then it turns out it was Paco and his homeboy. So they get out the car, right? And Paco grabs her because, again, he knew that was Mick's girl. So he starts beating on her, and then he violates her. You know what I'm saying? But he did it for a reason. And yo, that was a scumbag move. You know what I'm saying? But he felt like he had to do it because of what Mick did to his brother. So when it was about to kill her, you know what I'm saying? Because he wanted his homeboy, you know what I'm saying, do her in. The cop showed up in time. And so his homeboy, I think he got shot. I think he got shot and killed. And then they apprehended Paco. So, they did like a lineup before he went to the detention center because they was not trying to put Paco with Mick because they knew about the beef between the two, the guards and all of that. So, Mick's girlfriend, pointed Paco out, and they took him and they sent him to the detention center. So when he got there, Paco got the same treatment. You know what I'm saying? They were spitting on him, doing all kinds of shit or whatever, whatever. And it turns out that he was cellmates with Viking. And so him and Viking, they got cool because both of them had a mutual enemy. Hence Mick, you know what I'm saying? So at this point, Paco and Viking, they start messing with Mick and Barry. And Barry, at this point, knew that, Viking was no longer the top dog. So he started messing with him. And then he took a pan of food and dumped it on Viking's head or whatever. Yo, this little dude was too much, man. Man, I got a cold. Excuse me. So after that, they took Barry away. You know what I'm saying? Barry was celebrating and everything, and everybody was rooting for him. You know what I'm saying? Because again, Viking was no longer on top. So later on, it got to the point where Viking and Paco was messing with these boys so much. Barry had enough. So he went to agriculture, right? He was working in the agriculture department. And he had you know what I'm saying, he was working and then he discovered a way to because he was working on the radio for somebody. And this dude knew how to make just all kinds of stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like he was a very, very dangerous kid. So while he was in the agriculture department, he grabbed a handful of fertilizer or whatever. And so he was trying to you know what I'm saying, wire this radio to where, it'll do something if somebody turns it on, I guess long enough. So Viking walks back into his cell and he sees a radio on his bunk. And at first he's asking, who does the radio belong to or whatever, whatever. But nobody knew. And so he decides that he wants to keep the radio for himself. So he puts the radio to his ear and he's jamming to whatever song was on there. I don't know what it was, but anyway, or I don't remember what it was, but anyway, the radio started malfunctioning. It started sparking. And then he looked at it, you know what I'm saying, puzzled, like, okay. And then he decides to put it closer to his face again. And this time, the radio exploded right in his face. And that's what took him out. It almost killed him, but not quite. So Barry at this point was sent to see, the head guard or whatever, or the judge, you know what I'm saying? And he placed Barry into solitary confinement for the rest of his time there, you know what I'm saying? And Barry started going crazy. And then next thing you know, we, you know what I'm saying, go back to Vic. Oh, Vic. My bad, bro. Shout outs to Vic. Mick. You know what I'm saying? It you know, he's trying to do his time. You know what I'm saying? Even though Paco did what he did to his girl, because at one point Mick and Barry they escaped the detention center to go see, you know, Mick's girlfriend. Barry didn't make it, but Mick he seen, you know, what happened to her, and her face was all bruised up and everything. But then he went back quietly. You know what I'm saying? He just wanted to do whatever it took to see, you know, how she was, just because that happened to her. But anyway, despite that, you know what I'm saying? Mick didn't want no parts of getting in trouble with anyone. He just wanted to finish up his time, and that was that. But Paco wasn't trying to hear that. You know what I'm saying? So at this point, Paco found out that he was being transferred the next day. You know what I'm saying? So he came up with a plan to try to get Vic that me. I don't like he's saying Vic, Mick, that very night. You know what I'm saying? And so he was faking a stomach cramp. And one of the guards, you know, came out. But then Paco got up and started beating his ass with I think it was a small pipe. You know what I'm saying? And then he locked the guard into the in the office. And so he took his knife and he walked in to Mick's cell. And it looked like Mick was in the bed asleep. But Mick was standing behind the door. And then next thing you know, a fight breaks out between the two. And at first, you know what I'm saying, it was even. You know what I'm saying? Paco was touching him, and then Mick was touching him back. You know what I mean? So Mick had this little you know, weight or whatever, and Paco had a knife. So the fight was it was brutal. You know what I'm saying? Mick was getting stabbed in the legs and all of that. You know what I mean? But what, you know, gave Mick the upper hand is when he grabbed Paco by the head and started kneeing him repeatedly. You know what I'm saying? Directly in the face. And that's what took him out. So Mick grabs the knife and is about to, you know, is about to do Paco in, but he decides not to. So Mick gets up, he grabs Paco by the arm and drags him over to where the guards are. You know what I'm saying? And he goes back to his cell. So the guards, they eventually, you know, break out of the office or whatever, or from behind the fence because everybody had, you know what I'm saying, closed, like barricaded the fence so they couldn't get through. But they finally managed to get through, and the whole like crowd of kids dissipated and they went back to their cells. You know what I'm saying? They spread out and went back to their cells. So that was pretty much the end of the movie. Now, when I saw this movie the first time, it was a good film. It was a great film, but I told myself I'd probably never watch it again because it's just one of those movies where you only have to watch one time and it'll stay with you. You know what I'm saying? But when I seen it on Tubi, I decided to go ahead and give it another watch this time. You know what I'm saying? Because it's been 22 years since I've seen it. Damn, 22 years since 2003. Man, we old. Oh, I'm old. But anyway, yeah, the movie it was better than I remember. I had to give this movie an 8.5 out of 10. You know what I'm saying? Now, the themes, well, not the themes, but like the music in the movie and everything like that. You know what I'm saying? You could tell the movie is from the early 80s. You know what I'm saying? Um, if you haven't seen this movie, definitely check it out. It's a good movie. It's a great film. Like in the movie, it's very dark. I'm telling you now. If you know what I'm saying, if you can't handle violence, don't watch it. But if you're in the movies where, you know, like those prison type movies and stuff like that, definitely give it a watch if you haven't seen it. I recommend it. But I'm only recommending this movie for, you know, 17 and up because it has a hard R rating. You know what I'm saying? But like I said, check it out. And if you're watching this on YouTube, give me a like, comment, and subscribe, and I would greatly appreciate it. Y'all have a nice night, and I will talk to y'all later. Peace.
The feeling is mutual. Come in, take a seat, share your thoughts with each, and preach it when you speak, so we can share kinetic energy throughout the brainwave. Keep us balanced out and all on the same stage.